Live from Lagos, Nigeria, this is News Central. I'm Felicity Ezewike. The top stories tonight. Former Chief Justice of Nigeria, Ibrahim Tanko Muhammad, dies in Saudi Arabia, aged 71. House of Representatives begins probe into continued detention of Nigerian Air Force crew by Burkina Faso over airspace violations. White House Chief of Staff suggests U.S. military's attack on alleged drug boats aimed at toppling President Nicolas Maduro.
And business, Dangote petitions ICPC over corruption and financial impropriety by petroleum regulators boss Ahmed Farouk.
And in sports, Nigeria Football Federation officially petitions FIFA to investigate DR Congo over the use of ineligible players during the 2026 FIFA World Cup playoffs.
Tonight begins now. Tonight begins with the passing of former Chief Justice of Nigeria, Ibrahim Muhammad, popularly known as Tanko Muhammad. The former CJN died at the age of 71 in a hospital in Saudi Arabia where he had been receiving medical treatment. His death was confirmed by the Nigerian Association of Muslim Law Students in an official condolence statement issued from Abuja. The association described his passing as a major loss to the Nigerian judiciary, the legal profession, the Muslim community, and the nation. It also extended condolences to his family, the judiciary, the federal government, the people of Nigeria, and the wider Muslim community at large. Muhammad served as the substantive CJN from July the 24th, 2019 to June the 27th, 2022 as Nigeria's 17th Chief Justice. He was appointed acting CJN on January the 25th, 2019 in controversial circumstances after the suspension of Walter Ononge, his predecessor. In January 2019, then President Muhammadu Buhari suspended Ononge over allegations of non-asset declaration. In June 2022, Muhammad resigned as Chief Justice of Nigeria on grounds of ill health. Let's cross live now to our Abuja studio, where a senior advocate of Nigeria, Sam Kagbo, is waiting to discuss with us the life and times of the late Chief Justice and how the judiciary fared under him. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. He progressed from the Sharia court to become the Supreme Court Justice in 2006. What role do you think his educational background in Islamic and common law played in shaping his judicial philosophy?
Well, I wasn't really surprised that his death was announced by his community, which is the Islamic law community of the judicial system. But let me put it this way. Ibrahim Tanko Muhammad, that's what he liked to be called, although he was popularly called Tanko Muhammad. It was a typical judicial officer. He started very early in life, just about under 1 year post-call. He became, what do you call it now, a magistrate grade 2. The very beginning, he started as a magistrate grade 2, and within 10 years, he had risen to the Court of Appeal. And that is between 1981, when he was called, to 1993, he had served as a judge of the Sharia Court of Appeal, which actually gave him the foundation for him to be appointed to the Court of Appeal, because usually there is always a slot for somebody who is knowledgeable in Sharia law to be appointed as Justice of the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court. That trajectory and that route helped him to access both the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court. And from about 1993 to 2007, when he got into the Supreme Court, he was at the Court of Appeal for about, if my math is right, I think 13 years. He was at the Court of Appeal. And from 2007 to 2022, he was at the Supreme Court. That tells a lot, meaning that all his active and post call to the bar life has been on the bench. And that means a lot. Okay. A lot in the sense that he actually had the sixth sense of the judicial system and the judiciary from about the 1982 to 2022.
All right. His career path is something that a lot of persons have admired. Some say it's a bit controversial how he moved from in the judicial space. But I want you to talk to us about what you feel is his legacy to the judiciary. Is there perhaps any particular reform or policy that came under his watch?
You know, let me put it, it's difficult to actually itemize his legacy, but mind you, he came at the thick of election petitions, and for anybody who preside over any round of election petition, usually either left or right, your name would be part of the history. As at the time Nogan was eased out and he came, I wouldn't say he wasn't prepared for it, but he came at the thick of elections. And that was the time we had cases like that of the case that brought in Hopus Odima, which today many people misconstrue. And there is a lot of debate over the rightness or wrongness of that decision. And he presided over the court at that time. Many people still believe that, it was the Supreme Court that actually appointed Hopus Odima. But those of us who are lawyers who know what actually transpired and the issues that were presented before the Supreme Court, we thought that judgment reflected the facts of the case and the adversarial prowess of the parties that were before the court. So if you are asking me about his own legacy, yes, that was it. And also because of his background as a Sharia judicial officer and knowledgeable in the Sharia law, which is why he actually rose methodically and over and above his peers. I think in one of the landmark judgments, that of defamation in the Sharia law, there was that challenge of navigating between the jurisprudence of Sharia law and the Constitution itself that tried to insulate, religion from the everyday life of Nigerians.
Okay, I know you've highlighted a bit of that, but we do know he faced a lot of criticism over judicial independence at the time, and then there were talks about internal divisions within the Supreme Court. Based on what we know about him and his time there, what would be your reflections on how he handled those criticisms and if he did anything to address it?
Well, he was taciturn. He was not a talker. He was not one that could respond. If at all, many times they had people representing him at public fora, and it's difficult to quote him on anything. But as you rightly said, his tenure was unprecedented in the sense that from the word go, it was a roller coaster of challenges. His colleague was pushed out before his tenure, and he got into the office. Other people would have thought that the Supreme Court should, as a unit, rally around one of theirs. But I think the decision then was that, the lot was for Nogel to bear, and he took over from that. But not long before that, he had a problem with his own colleagues. And for the very first time in the history of our own judiciary, you had I think about 14 of his colleagues really putting their foot down and complaining very bitterly to the hearing of the public that he wasn't managing the affairs of the Supreme Court very well. And even the issue of the handling of their own welfare, the infrastructure, the facilities in the Supreme Court, it went so bad that there was a round of appointments to the Supreme Court that couldn't be completed because they said there were no residential accommodation for justices of the Court of Appeal that were appointed to the Supreme Court. And those justices, many of them had to retire without the opportunity of going to the higher bench, which is the Supreme Court. So you had that. And I think the problem he had was also that of his health. And because he wasn't that really strong, I think they said his family took advantage of that and infiltrated the registry and mismanaged the affairs of the Supreme Court. So if you ask me, that was a precedent that I would say we would not want to go to again. And I think his successors, the first two of them, are learning from that and would have tried as much as possible in order not to step on that banana peel.
Etienne, thank you very much for speaking with us. We appreciate your time. I guess it's time to say may his soul rest in peace. Coming up tonight, Nigeria Labour Congress warns against protest disruption as it threatens to embark on indefinite strike. That's after the break. You're watching tonight on News Central. A reminder of our top stories. Former Chief Justice of Nigeria, Ibrahim Tanko Muhammad, dies in Saudi Arabia, aged 71. House of Representatives begins probe into continued detention of Nigerian Air Force crew by Burkina Faso over airspace violations. White House Chief of Staff suggests U.S. military attacks on alleged drug boats aimed at toppling President Nicolas Maduro. Let's go now to the story that has been buzzing for a while. The chairman of Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote, has submitted a petition against the managing director of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, Ahmed Farouk, to the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, accusing him of corruption and financial impropriety. In a petition submitted on December 16 through his lawyer, Ogu Onoja SAN, Dangote demanded the arrest, investigation, and prosecution of Ahmed for allegedly living above his means as a public servant. According to the petition received by the office of the chairman of the ICPC, Musa Aliyu SAN, the Dangote Group chairman specifically accused the regulatory boss of spending without evidence of lawful means of income amounting to over $7 million for the education of his 4 children in different schools in Switzerland for a period of 6 years upfront.
We are here to submit a petition, a formal petition against, on behalf of our client, Dangote Refineries and Petrochemicals, against Engineer Farouk Ahmed, the CEO of Downstream Midstream Petroleum Regulatory Agency, the Midstream Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Agency, over his excesses that we believe was he's benefiting unduly from the public office he holds against Section 19 of the ICPC Act. And in the circumstance, we have no choice than to formally present a petition against him. We have evidence. The petition has already been submitted and acknowledged by the ICPC. You can see it from here. Now, we attach evidence of monies that are being expended as school fees for his children in excess of $7 million.
Meanwhile, the House of Representatives Joint Committees on Petroleum Resources Downstream and Midstream have summoned the president of the Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote, alongside the leadership of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, to appear before them and explain the allegations and counter-allegations fueling their dispute. This follows fresh allegations and counter-allegations between the Dangote refinery and the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, saying that it is essential to prevent further tension in the nation's downstream petroleum sector.
These issues, for as long as the committee is concerned, is coming at a time where the committee is guiding jealously the stability that we have achieved in the downstream petroleum sector. So the committees met today and agreed to intervene in the matter once again towards finding sustainable solutions. And we can only find sustainable solutions when we identify the critical issues that is leading to this tension that has returned. And that is why the committee resolved to write communication to Alhaji Aliko Dangote and also the NMDPRA authority chief to meet with the committee to be able to give us details and insights into what are the underlying issues that is leading to these allegations and counter-allegations. And the committee also resolved this afternoon to plead with the contending parties in the dispute to cease fire, especially media comments, so that we don't escalate the situation further.
I'm joined now to discuss the crisis in that sector. Two petroleum experts, Professor Izialem Agbon and Engineer Alex Neyin. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. I'll start with you, Professor Agbon. Help us understand what's at play here. How should observers interpret the fact that a dominant private player in the downstream sector is the one petitioning the chief regulator? Does this development represent, in your thinking, a genuine anti-corruption crusade by an aggrieved investor or a strategic move in a high-stakes battle over control of the fuel supply chain?
Thank you for having me. To answer your question, the reflection is on both. One is anti-corruption, because Dangote is asking that there are expenditures that cannot be explained by the authority chairman, and these expenditures do not come from personal income and they should be investigated. You remember Buhari said Nigeria either kill corruption or corruption will kill us. Secondly, Dangote is doing this not because Dangote is a comrade anti-corruption advocate. Dangote is doing this because Dangote is involved as an oligopoly in a struggle for market control against the importers and what he constitutes as the oil cabal. The authority gave 47 license to 47 importers to keep importing PMS into Nigeria. And Dangote is involved in a price war and market control share against these importers. These importers have always engaged in corrupt activity in the importation of PMS into Nigeria under the so-called subsidy regime. We've always said that there is no subsidy, there's only corruption. If you remember, in 2012, the representative Farouk Lawan committee found out that more than $6.8 billion was appropriated by the importers of PMS into Nigeria. Farouk Lawan committee was caught up in a corruption scandal by Otedola, and he went to jail, and he was later pardoned by President Tinubu. So the importers engaged in corrupt activity and the inflation and the appropriation of public funds through the so-called subsidy regime. So there was no subsidy, there was only corruption. Faced with that is Dangote. Dangote is doing oligopolistic prices. So between the oligopolistic prices of Dangote and the corrupt high prices of the importer, the Nigerian masses are caught in between with nobody fighting for their interest. I've always maintained that Dangote is fighting for Dangote interests. The oil cabal, the international traders and Nigerian importers are fighting for their economic interests. Nobody is fighting for the interests of the Nigerian masses. The interest of the Nigerian masses is the elimination of corruption and corrupt prices, either by the people that are regulators, by the importers claiming so-called subsidy inside the NMDPRA, where they are talking over pricing, and also against oligopolistic domination of the market by Dangote.
All right.
This is the situation.
Alex, let's come to you now. Do we have Alex, please? Okay, I understand we don't have Alex in this conversation. So I'll just ask you this. It is not technically like an oil question, but more to do with not throwing the baby away with the bathwater in terms of the allegations that are being presented. Whether he is in the position to do that, to give it to the ICPC, or it is their place to investigate these allegations, and if there are any relevance, because at the moment it seems there's a coalition of lawyers that have come out to say this will discourage investors from coming into the country. Your thoughts, please.
The struggle against corruption cannot discourage anybody from investing in the country. We must encourage any questions that are raised about corrupt practices by anybody, whether they're in public office or not. No matter the reason why Dangote is doing it, the chairman of the authority should be asked to explain his source of income. If his source of income are legitimate, then there is no problem. If he cannot explain it, he should be asked to resign and he should be moved out of the way. That is completely different. I do not really appreciate the representative saying that they are asking for a public ceasefire. The public information should be encouraged. There's nothing like intervention for public ceasefire. Like I said before, even when we forced the representative in 2012 to go and investigate and they found corruption, the chairman of that investigative committee in the House of Representatives, Farouk Lawan, was now subjected and accused of corruption himself by Otodola. So if the reps want to intervene, they should not intervene and sweep it under the carpet. They should open everything to mass publication so that the press can be involved in everything and the public Nigerian masses can be involved. That's the only way.
Yeah, but as it stands now, it seems some people say this is a distraction, but is this an opening for a bigger conversation as to what is happening in the oil sector? Are these allegations distracting from the real issues at play?
No, they are not. Because Dangote is insisting that the chairman of the authority have got connection to the oil importer. He's saying you cannot be a regulator and an importer. This is true. If you're going to be a regulator, you have to be an independent regulator. In a football match, you cannot be the referee and be playing for one of the teams. You have to be neutral. So if you have compromising linkages to importers, or you have compromising linkages to traders, or you have compromising linkages to Dangote, then you cannot be in the authority. You have to be neutral. Because the authority is supposed to represent the interests of the Nigerian people and the Nigerian government. Okay. So it is a legitimate complaint that Dangote is doing. The question we should ask is, what is the personal or economic relationship between Dangote and the authority, Dangote and our representative, Dangote and our politicians, the authorities and the importers, the authorities and the international traders? Let everybody economic interest be open to the public. That is the only way we can kill corruption and bring the prices to a competitive level.
Okay, let's go back.
Holistic level.
Solutions, we're always looking for that. Let's go back to your comment about what the House of Representatives members said. Among the things he also said was they are going to wade into this allegation, and what's the word he used now? Is it solve it, find solutions, and solve it once and for all? Do you think that the House of Representatives can do much in this matter?
Well, the legislation is supposed to make laws in Nigeria. They are not an investigative unit. They should make a law. What the legislation should do is to make an antitrust law. An antitrust law that does not allow any one player to dominate the Nigerian petroleum market. Because in future, we are going to have an oligopolistic problem. If Dangote alone is the major player, just like he's the major player in cement and sugar. This is not cement and sugar. This is petrol. So there should be an antitrust law against oligopolistic formation. And Dangote should be controlled by law, not to be a dominant player. That is what the legislation should do. When it comes to the legislation and corruption, the legislation should encourage that the ICPC and the FECC should pursue anybody who is faced with an alleged corrupt practice. And everybody's economic relationship should be open to the public. Like I said, the legislator can encourage the relationship between the authorities and make a law that people in the authorities cannot have relationship with importers or with traders. They should make a law that people in authority cannot have economic relationship with Dangote, and they should make a law to control Dangote's oligopolistic control of the market. If they do that, then Nigeria will have a situation where we have the maximum benefit from Dangote.
All right, let's take a look quickly. We have very limited time, sir. I want you to speak quickly to suggestions of what civil society organizations, aside from the House of Representatives, a labor union, and maybe professional associations can do to leverage the petition to push for wider reforms in declaration of assets, lifestyle audits, and maybe public disclosure requirements for top regulatory officials like Farouk.
Yes, I think trade unions who Dangote was fighting just a few weeks ago, Dangote is fighting everybody. But trade union and civil service organizations should put pressure on the legislation as well as the government, as well as public opinion, to force all the information involving Dangote, the importers, the international traders, the authority, and even the legislators themselves. Everybody's financial leakages should be made public so that we will see that everybody is above board and nobody is corrupt. This is the role that civil society organizations and trade unions like Pegasin and Nupeng can play in protecting the interests of their workers and the interests of the Nigerian citizens with respect to low prices. We want low prices.
Everybody wants that. Everybody wants low pricing. We're hoping we can resolve it.
Let me tell you, I can buy petrol here at 740 naira a liter in Houston today. So that raises a question. We'll
have to pause the conversation now, Prof. We have to pause now. Thank you, as always, for speaking with us. We appreciate your time.
I'm grateful. Thank you for having me.
Tonight returns after this break. Thank you for staying with us. The House of Representatives has ordered a swift and comprehensive multi-committee probe on the Nigerian Air Force C-130 aircraft alleged to have been made a precautionary landing in Burkina Faso, which was subsequently detained by the military junta. The incident, which left 11 Nigerian Air Force personnel still in detention, has sparked regional tensions, prompting calls for urgent diplomatic action and public transparency. News Center's House of Representatives correspondent Idong Joseph reports.
After a brief executive session that lasted about 40 minutes, deliberations on issues relating to the deplorable state of the Abuja-Lokoja highway, the dispute between the Dangote Group and the Nigeria Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, and the detention of a Nigeria C-130 aircraft, including its crew member in Burkina Faso on December the 8th, led the business of the day.
That despite the economic importance, the highway has continued to deteriorate due to the poor maintenance, failed portion and erosions, and frequent flooding, especially around Abaji, Gwagwalada, and Lokoja.
The safe flight was properly documented and conducted in compliance with the international aviation standards, including provisions for diversion on safety grounds.
Lawmakers warned that misinformation regarding the incident threatens Nigeria's diplomatic standing and public confidence in security institutions. The House ordered a cross-committee interface with relevant government agencies to resolve the issue.
The House is concerned that prolonged uncertainty surrounding the aircraft and its personnel could negatively affect national morale, civil-military confidence, and Nigeria's image within the sub-region.
Invoking Section 88, subsection 1 and 2 of the 1999 Constitution to investigate the activities of agencies, lawmakers also waded into the dispute between the NMDPRA and the Dangote refinery. Members of Parliament warned that if the dispute is not urgently resolved, it could escalate into a fuel supply crisis and undermine recent efforts to stabilize the downstream sector.
Worried that unresolved regulatory disagreement between statutory regulators and the country's largest domestic refineries pose a real risk and supply chain disruption.
The House then mandated its committees on petroleum resources, midstream and downstream to investigate the root cause of the dispute and engage relevant stakeholders in the downstream value chain to resolve the impasse and report back within 4 weeks. In Abuja for News Central, Idong Joseph.
Great storytelling, superb audience engagement and innovative talk show production are some of the qualities required in a thriving creative industry and ever-evolving digital world. This comes as media professionals and creatives converged on Lagos at a press conference to unveil Mad Studio. Correspondent Placidia Iwekulie reports that the press conference also offered insights into the studio's programming direction, creative focus, and plans for future content development.
I felt that there was a deep assignment inside me to go beyond talking, to actually helping people. It's one thing to talk at people, but another thing to talk with Nigerians. And that's what this show is about. It's a live audience show where I am moderating conversation between Nigerians from all walks of life. And the idea is for them to come and have a very comfortable platform of expression where their views are heard, they are seen, and they are respected, and their views are also impacted upon. Look forward to a very novel breakfast show. A breakfast show with impact, a breakfast show that brings joy, laughter, celebration to Nigerians. Because Nigerians we're kind of used to just being dull sometimes. But it's a show that reminds us of who we are. We are the biggest black nation in the world. We're a country of very informed and educated people. Therefore, we need to hold that power and become the voice of Africa. So this show, I believe, is a show that would be exported globally, where people see Nigerians for who they are. Smart, confident people who have a voice and who are not in any way afraid to express it at any point in time.
From Nigeria, the United Nations is warning that more than 17 million people in Afghanistan could face acute food insecurity this winter. The World Food Programme says the situation is continuing to deteriorate, driven by what it calls a combination of crises. These include prolonged drought, recent earthquakes, and the forced return of large numbers of Afghans from neighboring countries such as Iran and Pakistan. WFP officials say the influx is placing severe pressure on Afghanistan's already limited resources and fragile infrastructure, increasing vulnerability across the country as winter approaches. And one of our top stories tonight, White House Chief of Staff Susie Willis has suggested that the United States military attacks on alleged drug boats around Latin America aim to ultimately topple Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. In comments published by Vanity Fair magazine on Tuesday, Willis appeared to contradict the Donald Trump administration's stated rationale behind a bombing campaign combating drugs. Vanity Fair released a lengthy profile on Tuesday, hours after the Pentagon announced 3 more boat strikes in the Eastern Pacific Ocean that it said killed 8 people. Tonight returns with business, sports, and entertainment news. Do stay with us.
This segment is brought to you by MoneyPoint.
The Nigerian Senate has approved the 2026-2028 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper ahead of the 2026 appropriation bill. The crude oil benchmark for 2026 was reduced to $60 per barrel, reflecting global price volatility, while production is sustained at 1.84 million barrels per day. The 54.46 trillion naira federal spending plan aims to cushion the economy against external shocks, with projected exchange rates of 1,512 naira to the dollar and inflation easing from 16.5% in 2026 to 9% by 2028. The framework also endorses tax reforms, a national scanning policy, and capital expenditure of 20.13 trillion naira to drive fiscal stability. The Central Bank of Nigeria has revoked the operational licenses of ASO Savings and Loans PLC and Union Homes Savings and Loans PLC for violating banking regulations. The institution failed to meet minimum paid-up share capital requirements, had insufficient assets, and were critically undercapitalized. The CBN aims to maintain a safe banking sector, protect customers' deposits, and ensure only sound institutions operate. The Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation has begun paying insured deposits to affected customers. The move strengthens the mortgage subsector and enforces compliance with the banking regulations, ensuring a reliable banking environment. We will be back with a market report after this break. Stay with us. Well, you're welcome back, and it's time for the stock market report. Well, the market tried to move today, but decided to tiptoe instead. The NGX All-Share Index closed almost flat at 149,459.11 basis points, and the market cap is standing firm at 95.2 trillion, and there's only a little bit of an increase, very marginal, at 0.01%. Now, beneath that calm surface, sectoral performance told a more nuanced story. Insurance stocks quietly led the gainers, while banking and industrial names dragged, slightly reflecting selective profit-taking rather than broad risk-off sentiment. In short, today's session wasn't about momentum. It was about positioning, as investors stayed cautious and highly selective. So let's take a look at what's going on here. Now, in the banking sector, closing the red at 0.28%. Insurance, marginal increase once again here, going up by 0.36%. Oil and gas down by 0.09%. And consumer goods was up by 0.21%. Industrial goods down by 0.1%. Now, in the end, the market opted for restraint over risk. Today's mixed close reflects an investor community playing the long game, carefully reallocating rather than making bold bets until stronger triggers surface. The NGX is likely to remain range-bound, with participants focused on balance and capital protection over aggressive positioning. My name is Chamunda Beng, and that's a wrap on Business Tonight.
This segment is brought to you by MoneyPoint.
In sports tonight, the Nigerian Football Federation has asked FIFA to investigate whether the DR Congo used ineligible players during the CAF playoff that decided Africa's spot in the Intercontinental World Cup playoff. The match ended with DR Congo beating Nigeria on penalties. According to the NFF General Secretary, Dr. Mohamed Sanusi, the Football Federation of DR Congo misled FIFA in the player clearance process. The probe could cover between 6 and 9 players who switched nationalities or were cleared without full compliance with the national rules and FIFA statutes. FIFA is reviewing the evidence and could impose penalties if rules were broken. 7-time African champions, the Pharaohs of Egypt, have beaten the Super Eagles of Nigeria 2-1 in an international friendly played in Cairo earlier today. Both teams used the match as part of their preparation for the upcoming African Cup of Nations, which kicks off on Sunday in Morocco. Midfielder Mahmoud Saber, he opened the scoring after 28 minutes, tipping in a right-wing cross by Zizou. We had, however, Captain Chiedozie Awaziem headed home from close range late in the first half after veteran goalkeeper Ahmed El Shenawi. He fumbled a free kick from Seydou Sanusi. Super Eagles coach Eric Schell made 5 changes at the break, but it was Egypt that took the lead 8 minutes after resumption when Mustafa Mohamed cleverly stayed onside and his low shot beat substitute goalkeeper Amaso Basoge for what proved to be the winner in that international friendly. The FIFA Best Awards were presented today in Doha, Qatar, celebrating the standout performance in the men's and women's football over the past year. Ousmane Dembele claims the Best FIFA Men's Player award, while Spain star Aitana Bonmati, she was named the Best FIFA Women's Player after another dominant season. Luis Enrique was crowned the Best Men's Coach, and Serena Wigman took the top honor in the women's category. Paris Saint-Germain goalkeeper Gianluigi Donnarumma, he was named the Best FIFA Men's Goalkeeper, while England's Hannah Hampton, she received the Women's Goalkeeper award. FIFA also unveiled the World 11 selection. The men's team was headlined by Dembele and teenage sensation Lamine Yamal, while the women's Best 11 featured Bonmati, Alexia Putellas, and Alexia Russo. Santiago Montre, he won the FIFA Puskas Award and the Best Men's Goal, with Lisbeth Ovel claiming the FIFA Matter Award for the Best Women's Goal for the year. And that's it in the world of sport. I am Onyinyechi Obaro. Entertainment news is up next with Sam Dundee.
In entertainment, we're starting with some sad news. South African radio personality DJ Waras has been confirmed dead after he was shot in central Johannesburg near the Carlton Center. According to police reports, the incident occurred in a busy area, prompting an active investigation, with authorities searching for a suspect described by witnesses. The motive for killing has not yet been officially established. The news has sparked outrage and grief across South Africa's media and entertainment circles, with colleagues calling for justice and improved safety for public figures. The incident adds to growing concerns over violent crime in urban centers and comes amid renewed national conversations on security and gun violence. It was hard to lose AKA, and honestly, not too long ago, a Nigerian faced some that. We're going to move from that one. Global music icon Mariah Carey has further cemented her legacy after extending her historic Billboard Hot 100 achievement, holding the record for the most #1 hits by a solo artist. I'm talking 19. She also has the most weeks at #1, over 90 weeks, and became the first artist to top the charts across 4 different decades. Now, her chart dominance continues to set an unmatched standard in pop music history. In addition to her chart success, Mariah Carey has been announced as a performer at the opening ceremony of Milano Cortina 2026 Winter's Olympics. Well, those are the biggest stories in entertainment. I am Sam Dandy.
And that's the news tonight. Would love to get your feedback. Please share them using the number showing now on your screen. You can follow us on our social media platforms at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV channel 422, Go TV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and on YouTube. As always, thank you very much for listening. Good night.